What is up, everybody? Welcome again to Tuesday afternoon. That means it's time for Mental Health Happy Hour Live. As the sign behind me says, word to your mother. I just want to make sure we get that out there to everybody and to all their mothers. Jason, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
So I'm really excited because our guest today got me excited about being excited about the show. So I'm really looking forward to it. Her name is Andrea Masons. She's been in personal development for more than 20 years, and she's got some great things she wants to talk about. So let's just bring her on. Andrea, how you doing?
Uh-oh, we lost you. You're muted.
We lost.
What a way to start.
You know what? I've done worse.
No, I hear you. Thank you, Simon, for having me aboard. Welcome, everyone. My name is Andrea, and it's a pleasure to be here, guys.
Yep. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your 2 decades in personal development?
Well, is that professional or personal? Because I've had professional and personal development over the past 2 years.
I'm sorry, personal development.
Yes. So, yeah, to piggyback it a little bit, just to give a understanding of where I'm coming from. So I was born under the war-torn drug zone era of the cartel at its prime in Colombia, South America. And my parents had to put me up for adoption, for they were unable to care for themselves as well as myself. So I came to America at 11 months old, weighing in at 11 pounds.
Wow.
And unfortunately, I don't have any medical records, photographs of any sort of my history. So I kind of started with a blank slate. And my parents were gracious enough to tell me at the age of 7 to when I was able to understand that I was their treasure. But unbeknownst to them, the next couple of decades, it was a tragedy for me because I had no identity. I didn't know who I was. Here you have a South American child in an American household. We have some similar traits, but we don't talk the same. Especially at that time, we had different physical features, and I was bullied my whole childhood, elementary, high school, middle school years, shoved into lockers, thrown into garbage cans, eating my lunch in the bathroom just to stay away from the bullseye.
Andrea, all 3 of us could trade similar stories, by the way. So.
Excellent. Well, that's why we're together. That's why we're together today.
All get it. We all get it. And I will say this. I grew up in the LA area.
Right.
So I grew up around every Latin American culture you can imagine. So, I can seeing how these people hold on to their cultures so tight.
Yes.
I mean, Colombian different from Nicaraguan, from Panamanian, from Guatemalan. There's a lot of things that overlap. I mean, like, for example, what you would call sopes in Mexico, they might call something different in all the cultures.
Right.
But they have something similar.
Right. Absolutely. And that's what we lose sight of, is that although we may have something unique, somewhere along the line, there's a common thread. And that's what we need to get back to. We need to get back to our roots. We need to understand where we came from, respect where we came from, and either learn from it. And as my mentor, Mr. Wes Brown, says, grow from it. Stop going through it.
Yeah. And one important thing, too, is if you find out you don't really like where you came from, use that as motivation.
Yes.
To get up to where you want to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
I mean,
I'm sorry. I hate to cut in right here, but you just said something very interesting from your mentor, which was, to not keep going through it, basically, is what he has said, which is interesting because with our conditions that we share, we do what I like to call maladaptive ruminations. Yes. Where we just keep harping on ourselves over things that are in the past, out of our control, but just reliving it over and over again. And sometimes that's the worst thing to do.
We are the only creatures of habit that plays the record over and over again and not learn from it until we truly get burned. And until we face our past will continue to chase us.
Yeah. Well, as I like to say, a lot of people in the autistic community, we take all the information in, we process it, we come to a conclusion, we overthink it, we process it again, we overthink it, then we overthink it, and then we overthink it some more.
Yes. And that's what it is we're constantly assessing ourselves. And the more and more we assess ourselves, the more and more we increase our self-doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And then we question our knowledge. Is our knowledge, based on facts or based on our childhood and our upbringing? Because I'll be honest, when I was growing up, I have slightly different ethics and values now than I did as a child, because I started to see what the greatest thing, and some people is a jagged pill to swallow, is I ask questions. I'm very thorough because I want to make sure I understand where you're coming from and where you're coming from, because that's what propelled me to go into the social work and psychology fields. Social work to understand the cultural diversities, the knowledge, the experience, and the different lifestyles, morals, ethics, and beliefs, only to also intertwine that with the science behind psychology. Why do you do what you do? Why do you say what you do or don't do what you do? And that marriage has just really helped me understand and effectively listen and communicate with people.
Yeah, and I do believe that we need to have that holistic approach towards medicine and psychology. Is like I like to say, is medication is not a silver bullet.
No.
It's not a cure-all. It's a tool in the toolbox, and you need to have a lot of tools in order to cope with the illnesses that we cope with.
Right.
And so, and another one is viewpoint, which is something you also like to talk about too.
Yes,
is
absolutely.
How your point of view can shape your reality.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the biggest key, is what is your focus on? Are you focusing on what you don't have or what you have? And if it is, we forget so quickly. We can make a choice in a second. Change our channel, change our frequency, change our mindset, change our vision. It may not be overnight, but we have the capacity. And if we have when we have the patience, that's when we persevere.
Oh, absolutely.
Here's the $1 million question, and is where do you start to get that? Because now it's taken me many years to develop it, so to do it. But I'm asking you though, how did you come about being able to do such a thing?
I came to that when I said, I've had enough. I am no longer living this way. I am miserable. I am toxic to my environment. I am not being where I should be. And every caliber of whether it be my career, my friendships, my relationships, when I felt I could be more, I could do more. Why am I doing so much more than everybody else? I was not meeting my fullest potential. And I said, that's it. I'm going to follow my heart, not the herd and not the hurt. And that's when success and happiness came into my life.
Making a decision.
Yeah. Now, I didn't say this at the beginning of the show, but for those of you listening, if you want, on whatever platform you're watching this on, YouTube, Facebook, please, if you leave comments, they will come to us. So ask questions. If there's things you want to know about, please let us know so we can talk about it.
Absolutely.
So, Andrea, I found that concept kind of when you were writing, your notes to me about the whole follow the herd and herd, HEARD.
And HEARD, both, yes.
Yeah.
Do not follow the herd,
follow your HERD.
Yes, follow your heart, not the herd or what you hear, or the hurt.
Right.
As Jason said, the hurt, we get hurt, we get damaged, and we focused on it. And it's like, no wonder you're manifesting, you're bringing it. And a lot, this is a big reality check for the listeners and the individuals that are watching. I had to do this at the worst time in my life. I lost my mother. I suppressed all of my anger, my frustration, my toxicity. And I was just like, I'm just going to go to work. And I distanced myself for 2 whole years from my family, just going to her gravesite, coming back. Mind you, it was 1 hour one way. And I realized I went to work and I had gotten sick. Didn't understand. I was like, I don't understand. I feel fine. Went to the hospital. I lost my capability to breathe. I had exercise and asthma. They gave me some oxygen, sent me home. after running series of tests. They overstepped or oversaw a condition that they said, Andrea, you have to come back to the emergency first thing in the morning. I said, I'm fine. I'm going to work. I got stuff to do, you know? They said, please, we have to share your results. And they diagnosed me at that moment with myasthenia gravis. Gentlemen, it was like a bricks hit myself in the face. Myasthenia gravis is a terminal autoimmune disease where it's terminal. So, make a long story short, I was just like, how can this be? I was fine. I don't understand. But I had pre-existing conditions, osteopenia, fibromyalgia, carpal tunnel syndrome, exercise-induced asthma, you name it, rheumatoid arthritis, you name it. And then I realized I self-inflicted this all upon myself. I was just suppressing my stress, suppressing my anger, suppressing my grief, suppressing my denial. And if you don't take care of it, you know who's going to take care of it and say, look, if you're not going to take you out and stop, I'm going to stop you. I ended up going into the hospital for over a week, hooked up onto the ICU unit, up to machines.
Wow.
I lost all feeling in all quadrants of my limbs, unable to breathe, unable to eat on my own will. My husband called me at the time. He's like, we need you home. Our son needs you. I said, okay. He said, remember when we unplugged a few years ago, but remember when we started investing in ourselves and what we wanted to hear on the TV and on the radio? Remember the secret. So pardon the spoiler alert. I'm not going to get into it, but there was a medical excerpt of it. And I remember going to sleep that night. And I said, no, this is not how I'm going out. I made a conscious decision. The team came in and they said, if you are unable to eat, hold down your breakfast and walk on your own free will, your stay will be extended until further notice. Pardon me. Draped over my feet, jumped down because of my petite stature. I walked to that nurse's station and back. And they were just, I'll never forget their face. And they said, well, we ran a series of tests. You're good. Take care. And gentlemen, to this day, clean bill of health, erased and eliminated from all those conditions.
So nice. You mentioned arthritis earlier, and that got me to thinking. You live in the Atlantic Northwest, where it gets very cold.
Yes, Jason, right now it's 18 degrees.
Yeah,
Fahrenheit.
Missouri, where it was
22,
as low as 14 yesterday and 22 today.
Yeah,
and I've got arthritis, so I literally feel your pain, Andrea.
Yes, I mean, let's be honest, we're the best weathermen and weatherwomen.
Yeah. And you bring up a very good point, which is watching your symptoms. You had symptoms before all this hit you that could have detected this much earlier.
Yes.
Had you been taking care of yourself like you should have. And so the important thing to take away from this is if you do have conditions popping up that are not right, what's right and what's not right.
Yes.
Get them checked out, because
it was self-awareness.
Right. Well, and it's your doctors too. And I can tell you my dad's case, or he's been gone for 20 years now, but he had colon cancer.
Wow.
But before he got diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer, he had in the 2 years before over 200 polyps removed from his sinuses.
Oh my gosh.
Well, once he finally got to see an oncologist, he was told the primary care doctor should have caught this much sooner because the lymph system runs from your sinuses to your colon.
Yes, absolutely.
So the fact that, being in his 70s, early 70s at the time, and having 200 polyps removed from your sinuses, that should have made that doctor check. Hey, maybe there's something on down to the colon. So it's not just our responsibility, but it's also making sure that we've got the right doctors who are looking out for us.
Yes, because a few years prior, I had 7 ulcers on my gallbladder. It had to be immediately removed. When I was in middle school, I had to get my appendix removed because it would almost burst. Yeah. But I look in hindsight, I'm like, oh my goodness, this was all self-induced. And the medications that I was on weren't helping. It was adding other symptoms.
Yeah, stress.
You know?
Stress is a big wreck on the body. I know when I had my
Yes.
appendix out, I was in an extremely stressful
Yes.
time of
Yes.
my life, and it was like the worst possible time to have your appendix taken out is when it was what was going on with me, and so it's funny. It made me slow down, though. I mean, it forced me physically to slow down.
Yeah.
And with all that was going on. But
and 6 months ago, I had a conversation with my psychologist, and I said, you know, I admitted to him, I said, I've come off each of my medicines for, you know, tapered them down and gone off for a month, one at a time, because I wanted to see what I felt like with the different combinations. And we had a talk about, you know, this medication makes me feel this way, which is good, but it also makes me feel this way, which is bad. And we talked about the 3 that I'm taking and what we could do to either switch up or change doses or whatever, so I didn't have those negative feelings.
Now that's a good doctor, because you know, when I experienced a level of abuse when I was a young kid from my peers, mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, sexual, you name it. And my parents wanted to do the right thing and had me talk to someone. And I talk about this in one of my videos. And I said, you know what? I sat down and they talked to me and they said, okay, Andrea, what happened? And I shared what happened. And they said, oh, okay. Well, let me tell you, this is what is going on in your mind. This is what you experienced. This is what it's called. For about 20 minutes, they went on that tangent, if you will. And then I said, okay, well, okay. And then they asked me, well, how do you feel? I said, well, I feel A, B, and C. And they said, okay, well, you know what? We've got about 5 minutes, 10 minutes left. You're coming in next week at 4:30. Okay, great. Make sure you check with the front desk to pay out of the roll. We'll discuss this the next week. I was like, really? And I'm not saying all doctors would like that, but that was one of the reasons I graduated, if you will, from the mental health conditions, because it's to each his own, not all of them, but I really think we need to expand the mental health education awareness in schools, in police forces, in the like everywhere. It used to be taboo. Oh, you go into a shrink? No, I'm going to somebody because I'm brave enough to get to want to know the root cause of what's going on with me, so I don't end up in ABZ. You know what I mean? And it was just getting really rough, because when I went into the
right there.
And when I went into I would go into the psychiatric wards. I would go into the jails of the heinous crimes. I mean, murderers, pedophiles, you name it. And then I went on the streets and the children's shelter. And I remember like this, I would go in there and my supervisor or boss would say, okay, here's their file. You're going there at 3:00. Be prepared. I did. Okay, thank you. I'll read it later.
Yeah.
I don't want to read it right now. And I can't tell you, gentlemen, the slack that I got from doing that. Well, you need to prepare yourself. It may be dangerous. I said, number one, that's the risk of being in this field.
Yeah.
Number two, that is someone's mother, father, uncle, brother, sister, daughter, child. I am not going in there. I refuse to go in there to read their labels and stigmatisms and conditions that you put upon them. And that saved me to last that long in that industry until it started changing. And I was just like, okay, I've paid my dues. I'll do it my way.
Yeah. Andrea, I lived in Toronto for a year. So when you said ABZ, that just tells me that you've either lived in or near Canada.
No. Actually, and he's going to kill me on this one. Actually, there's a gentleman that's a good friend of mine who is from Canada, and we've adopted each other's lingo. I haven't said out yet, but I did say button. I did say button. And so, but his name is Nelson Beltajar, a good friend of mine who had been my adversary upon this to show me that possible is impossible. But
Well,
that's where I got that
I will
Canadian
say
lingo.
that every once in a while I still will say a boot.
I love it. I love accents. So yes. So
And Jason, I'm sure you know this, but if not, the letter Z in the Canadian alphabet is pronounced Z.
Right. Yeah, there was a radio show I used to listen to a lot out of Canada, and they, of course, when they give their address,
yes.
they always use Z in there, and I'm used to Zulu, but
I didn't even know I used that till just now. That's funny.
No. It's good though. It shows our shared experiences.
Yes.
Yeah, and I worked with Canadian forces too, and when I was in the military, and those some
Thank
good
you for
guys.
your services. Thank you.
I used to patch them all up, so that was part of what my job was.
Wow.
Yeah, so interesting story, Andrea. Jason ended up with his PTSD from being a combat medic.
Wow.
And he wasn't even overseas. He was at Walter Reed Medical Center in D.C., where they sent the worst of the worst back home.
Wow.
Yeah,
and
that wasn't
the best
until
of the best, the angels. So thank you, Jason, for your sacrifices.
But what was funny wasn't until 2002 that Congress officially acted and said that okay, even combat medics who weren't in combat could get PTSD, including sexual trauma and other forms of PTSD. At that time, when I was in, only way you got PTSD was from combat. I mean, when they gave me my little test, they have, ask you a couple of questions and it's your PTSD test. Doc took it out of my chart, ripped it up, and threw it in the trash, says that doesn't count. You weren't in combat. And I was off the scale.
Wow.
But that's how and that was a psychiatrist.
Wow.
That did that.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
And so that was how PTSD was treated in the military at that time.
Yeah.
And they've come a long ways. I mean, they're making an effort, but it's a lot of culture. We're talking about over 200 years of culture that's been ingrained in the armed forces. Yeah,
and it just it gets so emotional on like a agitated front. For how we treat our servicemen and women. They're making the ultimate sacrifice to protect and serve their country and their families, and they're coming home homeless. They're coming home with no support. It it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I can literally feel the golf ball right now in my chest of how it's just, I'm sorry.
Well, and Andrea, these are the people that Jason plays Dungeons and Dragons with.
Wow.
Through his program that he calls Dungeons and Dog Tags.
Right.
These are the people that he works with, on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and I think too often we turn to government and say, government, what should we do? And when we can do as collective people, do a hell of a lot better job at a better price tag to more people on our own. I've developed a tremendous community with Dungeons and Dog Tags, and some of it's through dumb luck and others through hard work, and a combination of both makes for interesting stories.
Wow.
And it's been a long road, but we're starting to make some headway and reaching out there and getting reaching out to, during Christmas time. We did a game on Christmas Day for veterans that were home alone.
Yeah.
So, that went over really well, and that almost developed into a group if I had let it. They're like, all right, let's get back together next week. And I'm like, I've got something else going on next week. Sorry.
Yeah, no.
I opted to nap through that game.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
So, Andrea, I've been doing a lot of thinking about planning. I'm starting a once a month for all of 2022, a series called Living an Authentic Autistic Life in 2022.
Wow.
So I've been thinking about, living life and planning and things like that. So I'm really interested in hearing about Press Play.
Yes, press play. Plan life according to you. So, as I was younger, as I said, I had school academically and socially was rough for me, but I loved to play. I played the piano since I was 4, and I played soccer since I was 4, American soccer. And those were my safe havens. Music is the universal language. You can just, play a song and hear it. That's how I was taught. It was just my escape, as well as on the field in soccer. And
You can call it football.
Okay, football.
Because I understand.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
grew up in Japan, so we called it something else, but
Okay, so soccer with the foot.
Yeah.
Pele soccer.
I mean,
Yeah.
football. I mean, you know what? I still call it football.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So whatever you feel comfortable
Yeah.
calling. I played the athletic sport using your feet and a ball and a net, and it was just so fun. And I understood when I started realizing what was going. I was just like, why can't life doesn't have to be this way? I don't have to make it so struggling, so serious. I need to have fun with it. And then I started tapping into myself. And when everything was domino effect spiraling down, I was expanding upon, after my decades in social work and psychology, I started becoming allegedly a liability for businesses because I had so much experience and what have you. And I would last a job from maybe a year to 18 months. And they said, okay, we're having a financial structure and you're overqualified. Boom, next job. Okay, well, we're restructuring of the next job. And I was just like, really? Like, okay. I said, you know what? I just want to have fun. I want to do what I love and I want to make it my own. So in 2020, for me, it was clarity. And I just was working on this from the start. And I built everything. And I was just like, well, I'm going to make it my own. What do I do? What could I call it? I love to play. Press play. Plan life according to you. So I bridge the gap from where you are to where you need to be. Your goals, dreams, whatever it may be, your tasks, whether it's in the health arena, nutritious arena, business arena, relationships, parenting, you name it. And what I do is I all do it deep rooted through the healing power of forgiveness, because every one of us is a name on a therapeutic couch, whether for good or bad. And I realized I didn't forgive myself when my mother passed. I didn't forgive myself when I got injured on the playing field. I didn't forgive myself when I wasn't finding the right relationship or friendships. And it was carrying that weight of remorse, disbelief. And then I just said, wait a minute. What am I doing? I'm carrying all this anger with me. Let me look at it. Let me forgive myself. So I did an exercise that I give to people. And the first time I did it, I was like, I'm great. And then I did it again. I was like, wow, I missed some. And since I've done that exercise, it's just been so liberating. And I feel so comfortable in my own skin. And I feel comfortable with my insecurities, my differences, because that's what makes us unique.
Yeah.
And that's what this transformational journey is all about.
Well, let's pause on that point right there real quick, which is forgiving yourself. That is a hard thing to do. And so often the society saying, forgive others. And it's like, at this age, forgiving others has actually gotten pretty easy for me to do because of my low opinion of humanity. I just kind of chalk it up to that. But forgiving yourself, especially for the past evils that you have done. I mean, when you know you were wrong for what you've done, and to forgive yourself for those kind of things, that's a huge stumbling block for a lot of people.
Yeah. It's not easy. And I remember I did a podcast the other day, and this woman just told me, Lady Maya, she was just like, forgive yourself because at that moment you were in a different place. And that struck a chord with me, because when I looked at all my mistakes, flaws, insecurities, whatever, innuendos, shortcomings, it wasn't and like you made a good point, Jason. Society makes you, if you forgive someone, some people feel I'm giving power to the other person, that I was deserving of their maltreatment or mistreatment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not what it's about. It's accepting again, with the mental health industries, understanding that that's all they may have known. That's all they may have experienced, or lack of knowledge, or there is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a reflection of you. It's a reflection of them. You've just been the bystander. And when you forgive yourself, that's when you're free. Because I realized when if I didn't forgive someone and someone new comes along for the intentional good, and I see a trait of that person who did me wrong, boom, they're out. And I missed out on some opportunities at that point, where I had to change my channel, change my perspective, and say, wait a minute, why am I living 10, 20, 30 years, 40, 50 years, how old you are? Why am I still bringing it here?
And that actually is a great transition point to what I would imagine is you're changing your perspective. So, going from forgiving yourself to now, looking at the world through a different lens.
Yeah, Jason, before we go there, though, one thing I want to point out is that even though the three of us all are aware of the concept and we all practice some version of what you've just been talking about, Andrea, that we all still slip from time to time.
Oh, yes, we're human.
Back into that, and that's okay.
Right.
No, that's not one extra thing that we need to beat ourselves up over.
Correct.
We just need to go, oh, I slipped. I forgot. Let's move on.
But you know what it is, JR? It's the awareness. It's the awareness that, hey, I made a mistake, or hey, I'm not going down that rabbit hole again. That's what makes the perseverance and the power of empowerment prevail.
Yeah. Because there are so many different things. I mean, from mindfulness to cognitive behavioral therapy to all kinds of things that are all based, they all have the same roots as what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
They're all just different approaches to it. And they're all equally good, and whatever floats your boat and is your niche.
Well, that's the thing about it, the uniqueness of each individual. I mean, just like every medication's a cocktail that's unique to that individual, so should their therapy as well, whatever route they choose to take. So, some people may respond well to CBT therapy, while others would, do very well with your approach, Andrea.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what has helped me mold, because a lot of people say, what's your niche, what's your generation, what's your population? I said, what makes me stand out, I don't dictate, I don't lecture, I listen, I learn, and I love. And for me to lead, that's not fair to you, because it's not my life. For me to guide, that's not fair, because I don't want you to get out of your comfort zone or feel uncomfortable. I walk right beside you. And we tackle whatever it is that you need to achieve at your own pace, and I meet you where you're at.
And what I do with cognitive behavioral therapy with people is I'll sit down and tell them, I'm going to give you some of the basics and some of the ideas. Now I want you to take that and make it your own.
Absolutely. And you know what it is, fellas. It's the application. We can lead a horse to water, but to force them to drink, that's totally on them. And that's where I've learned patience. Because everybody's in a different, what they call pre-contemplative, contemplative stage in the mind.
Too many people are too rigid with things. They say, okay, well, I learned that it has to be ABC.
Right.
Well, as an autistic person, my brain doesn't always work that way. I might have to do ACB.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what's difficult, is nowadays we have to understand there's more than one way to get 3. It could be, 3 minus, 3 plus 0 is 3, 2 plus 1 is 3. I mean, there's so many different variants. And that's what we have to understand. Our uniquenesses and our differences, which make us authentic. And that's how we work.
So we talked now about the pressing play and planning and living your life according to you, which kind of transitions into your personal accountability coach.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So what I do is I am accountability coach. I hold you accountable. A lot of us have tasks, chores, tasks, things we have to do, we must do, should do. Nobody asks you, what do you want to do? Are you happy?
Mm-hmm.
Do you enjoy where you're going? I get to the root cause of where you're at and why you are where you're at. But like I said, I don't dictate and lecture. I have people hire me and they're like, okay, what's the agenda? I said, you let me know.
Yeah.
Because it's not my life to lead. I can't say, oh, well, you know what, JR, I want you to do A, B, and C when you wake up in the morning. I don't know if you had a poor night's sleep. I don't know if you stubbed your toe on the bed, and I just have to be realistic. And through my interpersonal skills, effective communication and listening skills, it's just a casual conversation. Like what you see is what you get. No excuses, just results where I meet and listen and we get you there, And
Yeah.
that's the way that I connect with individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're trying to tell someone what to do, they're not going to listen. If you suggest something, they may take it with a grain of salt. But the proof is in the pudding, and every coach needs a coach, and everybody loves a cheerleader.
Yep.
Rooting them on, because you know what, as proud and successful as we are, it is a very lonely road.
I just had a bad personal accountability moment the other day when on Sunday when I wasn't feeling well and I lay down for a couple hours.
Uh-huh.
I heard my service dog come into the bedroom,
Oh no.
walk right past my bed into the bathroom, and he drained the toilet tank.
Oh my gosh.
And I thought to myself, his bowl is empty.
Yes.
I need to go fill his bowl with water.
Right.
I sighed. I got up. I went into the bathroom, flushed the toilet, and crawled back into bed.
But he was a good candidate because he got it himself.
Yeah, but that was a bad accountability moment. I should have
Oh,
gotten
yeah. No, I hear you.
Yeah.
But again, going back to what we said, we are our own worst critic, but we also have to remind ourselves we are human.
Yeah.
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 Yes, that is very true. So, talk to us about some ways that people can work on being personally accountable on their own. I mean, what sort of things do you teach them?
All right. So this is the 4 golden nuggets I share with everybody, because when you reflect on this and really hear the message behind the words, it really hones into you. So behind the toughest times, miracles are made.
Mm-hmm.
Follow your heart and not the herd nor the hurt, for success and happiness is on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Through life's trials and tribulations, triumphs will be won. And when you choose to press play, plan life according to you, your dreams become a reality.
Oh, that's awesome, because I misspelled the word nuggets, and by the time I changed it, you were done.
That's why they're nuggets and not boulders.
Yeah.
I'll send them to you.
But before they were 4 golden nuggets.
There you go. Yeah, now they're chicken nuggets. Cold.
That's right.
So how did you how did you come to articulate, because each one obviously represents a key point and what you go over, and so how did you come to articulate that, boil it down to that?
You know what? Just speaking from the heart, Jason, and under my mentor, Mr. Les Brown, working with him and beside him has just been amazing. It's just the stages of my life. Through the toughest times, miracles were made. I'm blessed and grateful to be here. When I was in the young teenage years, young adulthood, and, you would have, before I unplugged from TV, you would watch those commercials with orphans who were not healthy. And I was just like, wow. And as being a parent, that was like the most powerful thing a parent can do, is not only put your child up for adoption, but to another country, another continent, it's just admirable, unconditional love.
In some cases, as in your case,
Right.
it was done with love and with a sense of wanting
I
a
hope
better
so.
life for you.
I hope so. Yeah. I mean, I know I like I said, I have no knowledge. I know there was one excerpt that I was in an orphanage with measles, scarlet fever, like every possible condition you can have.
Basically all the stuff that we're immune, we get vaccinated
that
from,
now
we
everybody's
didn't have. Yeah.
immune for. Yeah. And I still have the inocular immunization thing there, on my shoulder.
But
And
Andrea, even though you don't know for sure, you can look at the history of what was going on in the country at the time and how it was unsafe for children. And I mean, you just kind of put two and two together. And you have to come up with a logical conclusion that your mom wanted a better life for you.
Yes. And, I went to some medians who gave me some information that, that her and her mom wanted to do that for me. And to be quite honest, this past summer was the first time I was able to watch live, or pardon me, pre-recorded footage of what Colombia was like at that time. And it was just, I gasped. I couldn't even watch the whole thing, especially, the village outside of where I was from was just, even to this day, it's still not.
Yeah, it was a literal war zone going on. I mean, we were there. Special forces. One of my drill sergeants spent most of his career in Central and South America.
Wow.
During that time, during the height of the drug wars, and then of course what was going on in Colombia, and then
and it was
things are still rough down there. Don't mistake me. It's not like hey, the battle days, and it's not. It was terrible times then. It's rough now, but hopefully things will improve.
And to kind of have the graciousness and ability now to speak in orphanages in the Middle East and mentor women and men in Africa. It's just kind of like looking in the mirror now, like, wow, it's possible. All we just need is faith and everything, and I did a couple of days in the morning, like for a couple of weeks. There was a connection I had made there, and then I would just meet all the children and talk to them. Obviously, they didn't understand. There was a translator.
Yeah.
But then I said, oh, how are their families? And then they said, Andrea, these are all orphans from 3 to 13. And my heart was just like, oh my gosh, I'm on the other side now, So
Yeah.
This is their family.
Yeah.
So why don't we talk about, because this may take a while and we've got 20 minutes left.
Okay.
Achieving personal freedom through the healing power of forgiveness, which really is the basis of all you've talked about so far.
Yes. So achieving personal freedom through the healing power of forgiveness. Like I had mentioned earlier in this segment, I was really holding on to a lot of guilt and remorse to my adopted parents, my biological parents per se. And it wasn't until that I became a parent of my own to understand, wow, this was the greatest gift that they've given me. So that subsided, as I was, in a relationship and really understood it. But it really struck a chord when, like I had mentioned, my hospital stay with my mother. Like, I can't, excuse me, I can't be mad at other people for how they treat me and what my perspective is. I'll give you an example. One of my people that I connected with was in great remorse. This individual was adopted as well and was in great, like, anger, like frustration. This is how, my mother felt about me, blah, 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 blah. And like, really, it was deep rooted. And I said, well, and it was a little bit, maybe about a year or two ago. I said, well, you know what? You mention this a lot. It constantly comes up. What did she actually say? And we did the exercise and we had a conversation, only to realize that was her perspective talking.
Mm-hmm.
She never, ever spoke to her mother. Her mother was never in the picture. She just left the family
Wow.
at that time. And it's just amazing because, there, and I hate to use this reference, but it's the most epic reference that I connected with. So in Pretty Woman, she says sometimes it's easier to believe the harder things than the good things.
Yeah.
And that's what I did my whole life. I would always believe, well, maybe it is me. And like I said, getting back to the self-doubt and wait a minute. And then when you say, is this a false belief or is this really valid? And then, so what I encourage people is, okay, you get hurt, you get treated poorly. Number one, assess the situation. I know, JR, we are always assessing and assessing and assessing, but I'm going to make it simple for 3 steps. Assess the situation and really look at it. Sit back, take a moment, and kind of reflect on what the situation had occurred. After you do that, then if you are brave enough, and when you're brave enough, ask the individual what drew you to that conclusion. Or, you know what, that situation made me really feel this way. And then understand it's not you, it's them.
Yeah.
A portion of it is you because you've carried it on for this long and your perspective was altered going forward from that incident, being scarred. But at the same token, that individual can have limited or lack thereof knowledge on how to convey a message, how to speak to you, to treat you, or something of the sort. And and it was, somebody asked me, well, how do you do this if it's in your immediate family or in your household? Same rules apply, but it's going to eat at you. It's going to be toxic, even subconsciously. You don't even know you're doing it. That it wears away at you. And forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. Please don't misunderstand that. Forgiveness is accepting the situation. It happened, but it doesn't have to be the underlying thread going forward for the rest of my life. And to find closure. If that person has passed, write them a letter and just say how you felt, then burn it. If that person is present, be brave enough. Please, you will achieve personal freedom once you get on that plane of understanding and see where they're at. And I'm not promising anything. They might be like, yeah, I meant that. Okay, I understand that that's what you meant. Now I'm done with it.
Yeah.
And
were my way of doing things not the right way always necessarily, by the way, is because I'm so logical, is I'll look and I'll say, okay, I've had these 3 failures. What do they have in common?
Yes.
Well, what they have in common is me. Therefore,
yeah.
And
well, we all know the definition of insanity: doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
Yeah.
And that's what's going on everywhere. We have to look inside ourselves. How long am I going to keep battling this battle? How long am I going to keep pushing on? And like I said, this is what connected with me and Mr. Brown. His quote, are you going through it or are you growing through it? And that was the light that clicked on, that I was just like, I'm not doing this anymore. I need to
love
face
that phrase.
Yeah. Because think about it. Are we, if you're miserable, yes, misery loves company. Why do we have to validate the negative cliches? I'm learning social media, and I did this reel, and it was pretty popular. I was just like, I said in the reel, I'm hungry. So my other voice says, make something to eat. I'm tired. Go to sleep early. I said, I'm not happy. So my other voice said, well, what are you going to do about it? Because my uncle was, God rest his soul, was an Italian. And he was just like, He just never tolerated complaints. He's like, well, what are you going to do about it? Do something about it. If you don't like your life, change it. Why wallow and just mull in it? Greg Plitt, the famous, weightlifter, he said, you only have one life and you live it right. That's all you need.
Yeah.
If
he's the typical Italian uncle, I picture him saying, so shut your pie hole and do something about it.
You've met him. Yes, you've met him. Yes.
I've met people like him.
Yes. Yes. But yeah, it's like, we, and what Jason said earlier in the segment is so true. We have the answers. We have them. We just don't want to do the work or the application. That's the problem, because I know, truth be told, everyone that's listening, watching on playback or live, you had somebody say to you, oh, I'm not losing weight. Well, are you eating right? No. Okay, change it. Yeah. But then, the only time that we are, warriors per se is when because this is what happened to me. So in the beginning of, because I always work behind the scenes. So in the beginning of doing like social media and learning all of this, somebody said to me, well, you know what? You're not established. You have not spoken on a platform. You have not done this, and this. And gentlemen, that was the best thing and the worst thing that they could have said, because that propelled me to say, I will prove you wrong. But why do we have to wait for that moment when we have it deep inside? That's our intuition. That's our gut. That's our gifts.
And then sometimes we say, like me, okay, I've spoken on those platforms. Why am I not getting more opportunities to speak on those platforms?
Right. And that's when I say, sharpen your lens, adjust the focus. You know what I mean? What are you focusing on?
Right.
And it's not, and believe me, everyone, I'm not saying this is an overnight deal. This is taking a long time for me to learn.
Nothing worthwhile ever is an overnight.
Right. What is it? Rome wasn't built in a day, all that stuff.
Yeah, I got nothing but time to burn,
right.
Being retired. So it's just, I was like, okay, if it's going to take a while, I'm down for hard work and stretching myself and doing things. And and also doing something I'm uncomfortable with.
Yeah. As soon as you do something uncomfortable in a good way, that's when you have to step outside your comfort zone. And that's when you're going to be at your greatest.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, Andrea, we've got a few minutes left. What are some other things that you really want people to know?
Yes. I'm not saying this is easy. I'm not saying that it's for you. I'm just saying, when you start heightening your awareness, seeing the development that you have, the potential, I say this in my videos, we are not given a time card of expiration when we leave here. But if you're here another day, that's another day you can make a difference. Again, going back to my Canadian friend, Nelson Baltajar, PositiveDrip.com, he's a son of a warrior of adversity. And his father said to him, and I'll never forget this when he told me this, his father said, make sure when you wake up every morning, you're the answer to someone's prayer. Powerful mic drop. That was just like, oh my goodness. And that's what it is. When you realize, go through life living, not surviving, you can thrive. Love what you do what you love. Because if you're going to invest 40, 60, 80 hours of your life to fulfill someone else's dream, think about what you could do if it was yours.
Yeah.
I've helped individuals buy back up to 40 hours of personal time per month once they realized what they can do.
Well, this has all been awesome, but the one thing we always point out at the end of every show is, if you're struggling with these kind of issues and your self-esteem and the way you look and the way you feel, there's always help. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is there. If you're feeling to that point, Jason, I can't remember. You've got the one for the military.
It's actually the same number, but what you do is you press 1 immediately when somebody picks up, and it'll connect you to somebody specially trained to help soldiers facing suicide.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
so it's the same number. Also, I believe the new National Suicide Hotline is 988.
Mhm.
I think that we'll have to double check on that one. I think that's come online finally.
Okay.
And that's an important number to remember too. But the key thing though is don't wait for it to get that bad.
Right.
You know, again, these people, they're trained to help bring you from a hot zone to a cooler zone. They can't solve your problems. And
Right.
so it does start with you and reaching out to those around you.
Absolutely.
Well,
In whatever way you're able to, you know.
and doing things like, you know, going to Andrea's website and, you know, finding out more about this and talking with her about how you can change the focus on your life so that you're not feeling like you need to take your life anymore.
Right. Everybody has a story. When we're younger, our story is told to us. But at one point in our life, it's our opportunity to take the pen in our own hands and write our own story.
That's right. Well,
Right.
Andrea, I want to thank you very much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much.
To remind everybody that tomorrow this will be up in podcast format.
Yes.
So go to whatever podcast platform you listen to, type in Mental Health Happy Hour Live, and Andrea, I will send you the link.
Excellent.
But,
yes, and to the audience, I appreciate it. You guys are the reason why I'm here and doing what I'm doing with these fine gentlemen. And I also, welcome a connection. I offer a complimentary coaching session. Just type in Mental Health Happy Hour. Connect with me at am.pressplay, and I that's my token of appreciation.
All right. Okay. Well, we will add that email address to the notes on here after the show.
Absolutely. Excellent.
So, Andrea, thank you very much, and hang on. We'll talk after we're off the air here.